Showing our screen, and so
we're just showing our screen. Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to Disciplining Differently with Broadway Church. Shanice is here, Taylor is here, Jessica is here, and we're recording this so that anyone can access it at any time. So, Shanice, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So I am Shanice Martin. I teach 5th grade, and a big concept that we do use is conscious discipline. And a lot of this information that you are going to hear from this presentation is from Dr. Becky Bailey, which is the creator of conscious discipline. And then some other information is going to be from the book Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, which is the 7 basic skills for turning conflict into cooperation, which is also written by Dr. Bailey. And then Taylor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Taylor Klein. I'm a Montessori teacher, and I work with 3 to 6-year-olds. One of the things that's so challenging about preschoolers is just that they're learning everything for the first time. So hopefully today, we can figure out how to best support them as they're learning to cope with this new situation, and how best to support you guys as you learn to cope with this new situation.
Giving yourself and your child grace. So this is a situation that none of us have ever lived in our lifetime. And all the information that we give to you today will be beneficial, not only through this pandemic, but as your child grows older, to secure that connection with your child and the attachment with your child. And we wanted to start by talking about self-care and why it is so important and feels so impossible. It is important that you do take care of yourself and find parts of your day where you're not hearing, Mom, Dad, look at me, I can do this, and not feel so overwhelmed. We're usually in a structure that provides us where we go to work, we hear our name, have adult conversation, and then when you go home, your role completely switches, but yet your mindset could still be somewhere else. So through this presentation, we're going to hit on self-care, and then creating structure and what this looks like and how you can start putting it into your day. Some like to do this incrementally. However, if your child is calm, whether it be a preschooler or high schooler, I suggest you start implementing it as soon as possible. As a teacher, the first few days of teaching, it's routine, expectations, and procedures. And I usually go really strict, and as the time goes, I loosen up to start building those fun connections. And that way, the child already understands my boundaries and the consequences of when they go past the boundaries or break the boundaries. The other big thing I wanted to mention is to be a STAR, the acronym STAR. I've noticed with me, children can do this, but as an adult with 27 11-year-olds in my room, I've noticed that when I start to feel frustrated, if I just stop, and I have to take 3 breaths because I'm gonna guess I'm a little more hot-blooded and one doesn't quite do it for me. But then after I take my few breaths, I already feel that I'm okay or better than I was before to address what's happening. And then another thing to always keep in mind is that your child is exposed to the adult world, and they have limited tools and resources and skills to process what's happening. And my personal opinion, a lot of the time, I think we forget we put children in adult situations, and then we feel frustrated when they act like a child. So like the idea of going to a grocery store, they're in a whole new surrounding. They want to run, they want to play, they want to grab everything. They like all the colors, they are experiencing something whereas you're trying to get in and out and feel frustrated that they're making that happen. So through this presentation, we hope that some of these things you see and can understand better. Sorry, Taylor, my slide again.
No, that's
so,
okay.
so giving independence to your child. And also, Taylor, when I'm finished, I would like to hear your perspective for the people that do have littles.
Absolutely.
So the big thing is I think one of the big reasons why teachers can have so many kiddos in their room and it still transition nicely and work is that we have a strict routine. Like from this time we're doing this time we're doing this. And with predictability, Dr. Bailey always says that it brings comfort because children are able to predict their day. They know what's going to happen. They know when and where they need to be at certain times. So to give you that time and opportunity for self-care and to give your child that gift of independence and choice, what you can do is set up a visual schedule. So for the older kiddos, in a few slides I have an example, but for the older kiddos, you could have time frames of what they're supposed to be doing. And then for certain activities, I always put a timer. So with my students, I'm like, listen, you have 10 minutes to work completely on your own or with a partner before you come ask me a question. So then that way I can look over their problems, know how to help them and help solve their problems. So for the parts that you incorporate in your day, the quiet time, free choice reading or screen time or outside time, set a timer for 30 minutes, let your child see the timer. And that gives you time to check up on them, but also do what you need to do. And then to also incorporate rituals that promote independence and connection. So I know seeing expectations, rules, procedures, guidelines sounds very much school related, but you can have expectations, rules, procedures, and guidelines for all parts of your day. So expectations for going to bed. You get your drink of water, you brush your teeth, you put on your pajamas, wash your face, get into bed. That's also part of the procedures, but rules. You could talk about how we are always respectful, responsible, and safe. Again, you hear that in the school setting, but keeping it simple and short allows you and your child to know what's expected. And then also to practice those routines and procedures and go over those rules before you come into possible conflict. So if you know that, say, bedtime's hard, just to briefly go over the expectations before bed and have your child go through it with you should decrease the likelihood of any complications. And then for I love you rituals, it needs to promote contact. It needs to have your child feel connected with you. And it's very important that you have eye contact. So something I like to do in the classroom is we kind of do like a patty cake thing where we go, you're awesome, you're amazing. And then both of our hands come together and we say, I care about you. So I love you rituals need to be throughout your day. They need to be if you leave, when you come back. They can happen before or after meals. I always suggest you do some sort of ritual when they first wake up and when they go to bed. That way they feel that connection right when they wake up, and then they go to bed knowing that they feel connected and that they are loved. Taylor, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think for the littles, for preschoolers, all of those are really great. The one thing to keep in mind is that when you're working with children 5 and younger, even 6 and younger, it's very important that all of these things are very visual and not related to words, especially the younger they are, because they, obviously they can't read words. So if you're setting up a visual schedule, instead of having a label that says breakfast, you can have a picture of bacon and eggs, or something like that, so that way it's your child can understand it. The other thing I would add is So a Montessori classroom, I have 35 children between 3 and 6, and very little of the day is teacher led. Very little of it is me determining what the schedule is. We lay down the expectations, and then the children are kind of free to choose within certain limits what they do. So I imagine it's pretty similar at home in lots of ways, just like Shanice was talking about, that at school it is in some ways easier to set up this routine at school and these procedures at school, just because the expectations are a little bit different. So when you're working in an environment where inherently there just is more freedom, the language that you use is very important. So for example, your child is going to come to you all the time because you're that primary adult, and there are just fewer people around them right now. So if your child comes and asks you a question like, is it time for lunch yet? You can say, well, what do you think? That is one of my favorite things to do, is if a child asks me a question and it's possible that they might already know the answer, instead of giving them an answer, I ask the child what they think about it. If a child asks me for help doing something, if I know that they can already do it, then I might say, well, I wonder if you can do it, or I'd like to see you try before I help you. If there are siblings at home, you could say, I wonder if so-and-so could help you do that. Not giving them an answer, not telling them you need to ask somebody else, but just kind of encouraging the possibility of asking somebody else. The other thing that I would definitely suggest is maybe changing a little bit or tempering how you're interacting with a child when they clearly need your attention. So for example, a really common thing would be your child has just colored a picture, they come over to you, do you like my picture? And our immediate reaction is usually to be like, yes, I love your picture. But instead of responding in that way, instead of saying, yes, I love it, yes, this is great, what we want to do is help the child to kind of get that satisfaction internally instead of coming through us externally. So you might say something like, if your child asks you, do you like my picture? You could say, well, do you like your picture? Because ultimately it doesn't matter if we like it. What matters is if they like it. You can also vary this by saying, I see blue in your picture. I see that you worked really hard. I see that you colored this butterfly purple. You know, just any kind of observation, because then you're affirming that this child is showing you something and you're responding to it. But you're not giving them this, wow, way to go, positive reaction. Because what that does is that just encourages your child to receive that satisfaction externally, which is really going to limit their independence. They're going to be looking for things outside of themselves for that affirmation.
And then also, sorry, Taylor, also going off of that, for you parents with older kiddos with the same concept, if your child is doing a task or drawing you a picture, you can say, oh, I noticed how you used red for this instead of using green. Can you explain your artistic choice? Mm-hmm. That way they're thinking deeper about what they're doing, and you're actually helping them kind of explain their justification reasoning why they do it. And the also, look at me, I'm standing on one foot. If you continue to saying like, oh, good job, great job, they're going to continue to do that because children need and want to be seen and heard. So if you reply with something like more focused, like, oh, great job, can you do a different skill? Then that child will go and practice a different skill until they've perfected it and then come get you to show you. These are examples of the schedules that you can use. The left is more picture based. So for your younger kiddos, you may want to limit the words, but also have the words there so that they can start identifying words. And then for the right side is more of what you would see for probably your third graders and up. I do suggest keeping the pictures up until about third grade, depending on your child's reading level, just so that they don't feel frustrated when they look at their schedule, that they still understand what's happening.
All right, so I think a lot of this applies to children of all ages, but it's particularly important with preschoolers. The main reason that toddlers and preschoolers have such extreme emotional reactions is because they're feeling something inside of themselves, and they often don't know what they're feeling, and they definitely don't know how to cope with it. They just see, oh, my brother took my ball, I'm angry. And there's this like intense sense of anger with no understanding of what they're supposed to do with this, or what kind of outlets they have. And I mean, I think about how we are as adults. We don't like to feel angry. We don't like to feel sad. And so children, in addition to not liking it, the little guys don't know even how to name it. So one of the biggest things that you can do is, in a neutral moment, introduce different faces and emotions. There are lots of different ways you can do this. I actually have a document that I'll share with you guys, where you can just look at different cards of different emotions. I think one of the most helpful ways to do it is, like, particularly if you're working through an emotion with a child, ask them which face they feel like. Don't tell them how they feel initially, because you might learn more about how your child is feeling if they, like, maybe you think that your child is angry, but then they point to the sad face, and that might change how you're going to interact with your child. So in a neutral moment, introduce different faces, and then give them the names for these faces so that way they can start to understand how they're feeling. When they name how they feel, it makes it a lot easier to move forward. I mean, it's the same for adults. As soon as you are able to name what is happening in here, you can start to make some changes. Next, what you're going to do is introduce healthy ways of coping. So there are a couple choices also in the document that I'll share with you, but this can be all sorts of things. This can be taking a star breath, like Shanice mentioned earlier. It could be squeezing a stress ball. It could be going to a safe space or a peace corner, coloring a picture, journal writing. If you're introducing these concepts in a neutral moment, then they become more accessible during meltdowns. If you're trying to introduce this when your child is screaming, it is not going to work out for you. So it's important to introduce that on the front side. Another piece I would add to this too is that a great way to introduce this to your child is to set an example and to be a little vulnerable with your child. For example, a couple of years ago, I was having a very stressful day in the classroom, and I stepped out for a little while, took my own star breaths, and when I came back to circle time, I told the children in the language that I asked them to use, I feel frustrated. I feel frustrated because this morning didn't go the way that I planned. I'm sorry if you could tell that I feel frustrated. And just kept the language simple, kept using the word frustrated so they understood the connection between my body and the name of the emotion. And then apologized to them about how I was being. I wasn't breaking down and crying in front of them. But it was amazing because as I was sharing this with the children, I had a few children get up and come give me a hug. So they saw how I was feeling, they heard how I was feeling, and they were able to empathize with me. And if children are able to understand that it's not weakness to feel these certain things, that the people they love most and the people they rely on also feel these things, it's going to be a lot easier for them to move forward.
So reasons that your elementary child or teenager have such extreme emotions. And again, this also goes for all kids, all ages. And I do suggest that you start teaching your kiddo about the brain parts. As if they're able to talk and like use their hand, or you can show them your hand, that way they start understanding of what part of their brain they're in. So if you put your hand in front of you flat, where your palm is facing you, and you look at your wrist, this is your survival brain. So this is your fight or flight. This is, oh my goodness, I'm not safe. I need to do something. I'm going to either run, I'm going to freeze, I'm going to scream, I'm going to hit. This is your, Becky Bailey used the example, this is your, I just saw a bear and I don't know what to do kind of response. Then if you tuck, keeping your forefingers up but tuck in your thumb, that is your feeling brain. So this part of your brain needs to feel connected or loved. So this is where they're not quite screaming and running or hitting. This is where they may be like sad, crying, or not knowing how to process a problem. So keeping your thumb in and then putting your forefingers on top of your thumb, this is your thinking brain. So this is where you're able to problem solve. This is where you want your kiddos to usually be in their brain state. And when they are in their thinking brain, they're able to solve problems. They're able to do skills that you need them to do, like put on their shoes, their coat, backpack, finish their dinner. When they're in their thinking brain, all tasks are very possible. But the moment something upsets them or frustrates them, they get in their feeling brain. And it takes about, Dr. Becky Bailey says about at least 20 minutes to get them back to their thinking brain. And that's usually minimum. And that, parents, also goes for you. When you're frustrated and dealing in your feeling brain, then you are also not really able to help solve that problem with your kiddo. It's just going to create more stress. It's going to create more anxiety. It's going to feed a situation more negatively. I know human nature is whenever you have a problem, you want to solve that problem as soon as possible, but it's always better to be back in your feeling brain, and problems don't have to be solved right that moment. Using that I language of, I would love to solve this problem, but I am not ready. My fifth graders hear me say that handful times a month, at least, if not daily. So it's one of those things that I still feel frustrated. I'm not ready to solve this problem. Then your child knows that, okay, the problem's not going away. We're still going to solve it. And then I usually like to say at the end of it, but know that I still care about you. So then that way that child's not feeling like kind of, I like to call it the limbo, like, oh, are they mad at me? Are they not mad at me? It's one of those things like, I like to let them know that I still care about them. It's just right now I'm in my, and I even tell my kids, I'll like show them my thumb. I'm like, right now I'm in my feeling brain. I am not ready to solve this. And they get it. They just go sit back down, and then I approach them, and then I start problem solving. Another big thing is that they still may have that missing skill or how, like, not sure how to handle that emotion. I'm not sure about your childhood, but I was used to hearing, you need to stop crying, you're fine. And through that process, I've learned, like, I've just turning 26 last year, I'm just starting to realize, oh, crying's not bad. It's a process of healing. I should probably do this more. What is this feeling? And just when your child is feeling that way or is feeling an emotion that they're not sure how to handle or understand, it is important to say language like, I feel that you are frustrated. How do you think you feel? What does your body feel like right now? What is your brain telling you right now? And then depending on where they are in their brain state. So if they're in their survival, they will not be ready to talk. That's why we'll talk about peace corners and calm spots, but that's why it is very important to have a calm spot in your home, because then that way if you see your child in it, then you know, oh, I probably need to process some sort of emotion at some part of the day. Again, our lives are busy. It's not something that needs to be handled right there. It can be a few hours later. I've even talked to students the day after, like, hey, I noticed this yesterday. Can you explain what was happening? Or do you need, I tell my older kids, do you need time, space, or a hug? And they usually tell me of how they would like to process their problem.
So, like I mentioned, taking a look at different faces and pictures to help your child determine the emotion they're feeling is really important. But we have a couple other things to suggest too. Healthy ways of coping. There are numerous ways that you can suggest to your child, and it's kind of going to depend on the personality of your child. So, breaths are really great. A star breath, you stop or smile, take a deep breath, and relax. You've got a balloon breath where you can fill up your balloon. And then there are any number of breaths. I mean, just look up different breathing techniques online. I'm sure you'll find a billion of them. Some children.
Taylor, really quick, because we're talking about breathing. For the older kids, they like the drain breath because they tense up their whole body as they're breathing in. And then as they like release their breath, they release their body. So that's good one. That's a good one for like the older kids that are very frustrated because they're tensing, but then they feel that like leave their body as they exhale.
Yeah, that's a great point.
What was the name of that one?
The drain, or it could be pretzel. It's either the pretzel or drain.
Okay.
I usually get them flipped, but my kids know how my brain works, so they usually do the one that I'm demonstrating.
Yeah, so breathing I love doing, and most children do like it, but in the moment for some children it may not be ideal. So you could have stress balls, fidgets, we'll talk about the peace corner in a moment, any kind of peaceful activity, stringing beads on a piece of string, Play-Doh is great. You could even have a little bottle of lotion that your child can put on their hand, especially if it's lotion that smells good, because then you've got the tactile lotion on the skin, but also the senses as well, too, or the sense of smell. So yeah, it all depends on your child and what you think will meet their needs best.
And then it's also very important, I think the next slide is the peace and calm spot. When you do set this up in your home, it is very important in a neutral moment to demonstrate how this spot is used. Okay, it's everyone that introduces something new, like when you teach your kid how to ride a bike, you usually have to show them, okay, well, you get on and you pedal, this is how you stop. This is the same idea for a peace corner or calm spot. So Taylor's going to mention what a peace corner or calm spot is, and I'm going to address what it is not.
So a peace corner, that's what we call it in my classroom, but you could call it a safe place, a calm spot, whatever you guys want to call it at home. It's a place for your child to go when they are feeling a strong emotion of any kind. This could be a negative emotion or a positive emotion. Maybe they're just feeling especially goofy, you know. So what you're going to do is you can pick a corner, a shelf, you can get a little basket, a rug, whatever fits best in your home, and then set it up as your designated peace corner. So in this area, you're going to have a few things that your child can use in moments of strong emotion. These are going to be some of the things that we just suggested. So a stress ball, bubble wrap for your child to pop, some of the different emotion face cards to look through. It's also important to make this space beautiful. So you can put a little flower in it, a beautiful rock, a picture, and then have your child help create it, because ultimately this is their space. It is not your space. So you want your child to feel like they've had a say in this, they've had some agency in this. So in those moments of extreme emotion, they want to go to this place because this is their space. It's definitely important as your child is helping you set it up to keep it pretty simple. Some kids may want to fill it with a bunch of stuff. So I would definitely limit it from 3 to 5 items. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a play area.
And also, And another thing to maybe put in there is the picture. In the sources that we're going to send out to you, there is a PDF of From Conscious Discipline of the different breaths, just so they remind themselves, oh, breathing is an option. But what a Peace Corner Calm Spot is not. It's not an area for you to send them in timeout. It's not a play place or a play space, and it's not a space that should be cluttered. If you think about your daily life, if you look at your desk, if your desk or workspace is cluttered and disorganized, my personality, I'm not affected by it too much because that's how I work, but for most people, it brings chaos to their life. So if your child goes into a calm spot that's cluttered or messy, it may not actually help them get calm. The reason why it's not a timeout spot is because timeout is usually formed as kind of a more discipline role instead of a proactive, I'm feeling a strong feeling, I need to go calm down. Whereas timeout's more of, oh, you did this, you know this is your consequence. Which is very important to have those, but the calm spot is mostly, it should only be for regulating their emotions or understanding how they're feeling or process how they're feeling before an adult steps in to help them process their feelings. To avoid power struggles with your child, be aware of behaviors or parts of the day that are a struggle or where behavior is noticeable. And when you know those are going to happen, use I language. So it's, I notice before nap time, we start to struggle and act goofy or we're frustrated. What are some strategies that we can do to help us go into nap time? That way your child is thinking, oh yeah, that is a rough day or a rough part of the day. And they may verbally say, well, I don't like taking naps. And then as a parent, how you respond is completely up to you. Usually with my kiddos, I explain why they need to do this skill. Well, in order for your brain to grow strong, I need to teach you this skill. Just that way it's always focused on them and they understand, oh, you're doing this because, and I usually say, because I care about you too much, I can't let you be not understanding math. Like I need to send you out in the world understanding. And so they usually understand that. Apologize. Oh, when you go from your thinking brain to your feeling or survival, we call it flip your lid. I apologize, I meant to say that earlier. But it's important if you do flip your lid or find yourself getting extremely frustrated and acting on that, to apologize for that. And it's not as simple, I'm sorry. Usually when you hear I'm sorry, it can come off many different ways. But when you apologize for flipping your lid, it sounds like, I wanted to apologize for flipping my lid. I felt frustrated for that we weren't putting on our shoes and following directions, and I didn't process my feeling, and so I resulted in yelling. Because all these tools and tricks are wonderful and great and they work, but usually what happens until you get in the routine of practicing it is you fall back to how your parents parented you. And it's to change that behavior, you're conscious disciplining yourself. Conscious discipline is more geared towards adults and their emotions and their regulation to help children get better at regulating their emotions. Also with apologizing, if you, your partner, whoever you live with, have an argument in front of the child, but you resolve it outside of your child's view, I always do suggest modeling that apology in front of your child so they're aware that adults apologize to each other and it's not just adult to child, child to child, that they see that healthy apology in front of them. So it doesn't have to be that evening. So let's say you have an argument after dinner, they hear it. That next morning after, or the next afternoon when it's resolved, you could say, hey, honey, I just wanted to apologize. I'm sorry for doing this, this, and this. I didn't like the way that this, and this played out. So for apologies, that's usually how Becky Bailey or BIST, one of the resources we'll give you, says to formulate your apology. I didn't like this. I feel this. Could you please not do whatever behavior that you didn't necessarily like? And then also to just be proactive. So if you know that certain parts of your day are, if the schedule's up, your kiddo knows that it's part of the day. So that's a way to be proactive. Also, if you know that going to the store is a struggle, they need to work through those skills. So still taking them to the store, I suggest, but giving them that, okay, well, in the store, we don't run. It's still probably going to happen, but correcting a behavior takes time. So it's still like if you're doing a math problem wrong, studies are showing it takes over 15 correct ways to fix one missing skill. So these aren't going to be quick tips, but it's something with the visual schedule and kind of making it look like a school routine. Things will eventually get easier, because if you've ever been to a parent-teacher conference and they speak wonderfully of your kid, there's no behaviors, they're kind, they're quiet, all their peers love them. A lot of the time I hear, are you sure that's my kid? Because at home they're this way. It's one of those things that structure and routine kids thrive off of. So just being proactive and having conversations and setting up routines and placements for your kiddo will decrease. Becky Bailey and a lot of counselors and psychologists say a lot of things may get worse before it gets better. And that's because they're testing your boundaries. For skills, we say try it to at least 2 weeks to see if it's working. If it's not, then that third week kind of introduce a new skill. And then another thing that would help is giving your child the power of choice. So giving your child choices and planning them throughout and preparing parts of your day where they can make choices, it gives your child a sense of power and that they have a say in their own experience. Because if you think about it, would you like it if someone, the moment you woke up, was like, okay, you're wearing this, you're eating this for breakfast, you're eating this for lunch, you're eating this for dinner, you can only play during this time with this toy. Eventually, you're not going to give your kiddo that independence because they aren't going to be used to making choices for themselves. However, if you pick choices that you already kind of approve of, so like with outfits in the morning, would you like to wear this or this today? Then your child, there's 2 options they can choose. If there's a meltdown in that process, you could be like, oh, I noticed that we're having a hard time choosing. If you cannot pick between these 2 choices, I will choose for you. Then that way they see their 2 choices, then they can rethink, okay, well, I don't really want mom or dad or guardian to pick my outfit. I guess I will pick. It just gives them that power and choice of opportunity to make some part of their own identity, and eventually will lead to independence because they're used to making their own choices in a set guideline. And then another thing I suggest is for free time, if you tell your kiddo you can do iPad, read, or play outside. If they go, well, can I do this? I would say, well, is it an iPad? Is it reading? Or is it playing outside? And if your child's like, well, no, and then, okay, well, what do you think the answer is? Of course, that works for the olders. Taylor will explain more about the little side.
Yeah, all of that applies pretty well to the younger kids. I think when it comes to making choices, it's very important to make sure that you are wording things so that way you get an outcome you want. One of the biggest mistakes that I make in the classroom all the time is, are you ready? Or would you like to do this? And then if they say yes or no, I have to respect whatever their answer is, regardless of whether or not it's the answer I was looking for. Because, we set it up in a way that that's the expectation. So you might have to get creative when you're offering choices, just like Shanice was saying. Offer 2 specific things, or I would say for the little guys, 2 is enough. when if you offer 3 or more, it gets to be a little confusing. So this can even be things as simple as like if you see that it's time to move on to nap time and your child is watching TV or building something and they really don't want to stop, then you could set it up like, in a moment, it's going to be nap time. Would you like to pack your Legos away in 1 minute, or would you like to pack your Legos away in 3 minutes? And then your child has a choice between those two things, and it will hopefully make that transition a little bit easier. I give my kids lots of countdowns like that because a lot of the time they need a moment to prepare themselves for what's coming next and just being at the whim of whatever we feel like doing. The thing about giving your child minutes when they're younger, at least preschool, toddler age, is they can't tell time. So if your child picks that they want 3 minutes and you're ready in 30 seconds, then just go ahead and say, okay, it's been 3 minutes. It's time to pack away now. Not to trick your child, but it doesn't have to be exactly 3 minutes.
For the older kids, I always set a timer that they can see.
Yeah.
And you can do the same for littles, unless, I was that babysitter at New Year's Eve that would change the clocks to 8:30, but like change it to like 11:30. So then they were in bed by 9 because that's how I rolled. But it's one of those things that I always suggest setting a timer so they're also aware how long 3 minutes actually is. Because for a little kid, it may feel forever, but for an older kid, 3 minutes isn't much, but then they know the expectation of when the timer goes off, that you're done. Like the choice was that we are cleaning up now, and so they know the outcome. It's that predictability creates safety and connection.
All right, I'll walk through this pretty quickly, but I wanted to mention this because meltdowns, especially with toddlers and preschoolers, they can be such a challenge. And I think the more consistency that you're providing for your child in those moments, the easier it goes for everybody. So the first thing that you're going to do is tell your child what they look like. For example, I see you stomping your feet and I hear you yelling. Your body is not calm. You are frustrated. At this point, you have hopefully already looked through the emotion faces together. So when they hear the word frustrated, they're starting to make that connection. It's also when you're telling them what they look like, to start with, it's drawing a distinction, both a distinction and a connection, that your body is acting this way because you feel this way. So not saying that the emotion is wrong, but starting to draw attention to the fact that, oh, maybe my body shouldn't be stomping its feet or whatever. The next is that you're going to tell your child it's okay to feel how they feel. You are frustrated. It is okay to feel frustrated. Next, you'll relate to your child by sharing that you sometimes feel this way too, and then share something that you do to cope. So for example, you might say, when I'm frustrated, I like to take a deep balloon breath. I'm going to take one right now. You can take one with me if you'd like, and then demonstrate your balloon breath. Encourage your child to find a healthy coping mechanism by asking, what would you like to do to help your body calm down? And they may not know, and so you could slowly, without being pushy, make some suggestions for them. Now, a couple notes about walking through these meltdowns is that sometimes your child is so upset that you have to walk away, just like Shanice was saying earlier. That's okay. You can say, I see that your body is not ready. I will come back when your body is ready. Or I will come back in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. As a teacher, I do find that it is important in those moments to step away, not like abandoning your child, but showing that you're moving on and you're prepared to move on with your day. A lot of meltdowns is attention-seeking behavior, and so if they are having a fit and you're there babying them through the process, then you're showing them that if they act this way, they're going to get attention. So by giving them that moment, you're giving yourself a chance to calm down, and you're giving them a chance to make a choice to calm themselves down as well. The other thing is keep your language as simple and short as possible. the more language that you're using in these moments, the more confusing that it's going to get for your child. It's just hard to follow when they're already feeling such a strong emotion and trying to calm their bodies down. If you're trying to reason with them, they're just not going to understand, plain and simple. Do you have anything to add to that, Shanice, for older children?
It's pretty much the same. It just sounds differently. So if your child's trying to argue, I usually go, I care about you too much to argue with you. Let me know when you're ready to solve this problem, and I would love to, or I'd be happy to. Or I usually do I don't appreciate how you're speaking with me right now. I'm not ready to solve this problem. I will come back to you when I'm ready to solve this problem. If you use a lot of I language, it's more offense instead of defense. Because if you start with well, you need to calm down, or I'm not going to, they're all automatically in their mindset where, oh, you don't think I'm calm? It's that phrase, like, if someone tells you to calm down, you're immediately not calm. So it's the idea of, I'm not ready to solve this problem. It sounds like we both need a few minutes to get back in our thinking brain. Will you let me know when you're ready, or I will let you know when I'm ready? Also with the older kiddos, if I do suggest that if there is an argument and they're on their phone or they're distracted, it probably will escalate the situation, but I do feel that it's important. I would appreciate it if you put down your device. I would like to solve this problem with you. If you aren't able to do that, then we can solve this problem at a time better for you. So then that way they're giving you your full attention, and they learn that them being distracted during a problem solving thing is not okay. So, and also with your older kids, if they get in trouble at school, it's okay if you don't solve that problem for a few days because you're still angry with it. I always suggest and say to try and solve problems when you're not angry, because that's usually when you either say something that you don't mean or do something that you don't need, and then you have to apologize for that behavior, and you're not modeling ideal behavior for your child. I do suggest that you always vocalize that. I'm very disappointed about what happened today at school. I'm not ready to solve this problem, but please know I care about you, and there's going to be consequences of your actions. I'm just not sure what that looks like yet. It feels weird to be that transparent because people feel that parents need power over children for that respect value. But if you start talking with your kids where they are able to talk with you about things like this, it just opens up a line of communication where they're more likely to communicate with you. So my 5th graders now feel comfortable enough with me that they'll actually tattle on themselves. And I'll be like, you guys, you realize that I'm the teacher in this situation that has to call your parents and let them know that this happened. And they're always like, yeah, but we needed to let you know because we knew you would understand. I'm just like, no, that's not how this works. Like, yes, thank you, but what? So just opening that line of communication and not solving problems when you're angry is very important. And to go back to teaching missing skills. So instead of hitting your sibling, what is something else that we could have done in this situation? So if a situation already happened, it's good to process back to the situation to think of other outcomes that could have happened. Like, instead of hitting her sibling, what could you have done? And then that's when they will be like, oh, well, I could have went to the calm spot. I could have got a stress ball. I could have done this, or this. That way they're aware of the other choices that they could have made.
Excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can all see each other.
Yay.
And I think so thanks for hanging in there, Jess and Joe. This is our Q&A time. I don't know if you have any questions, but if you do.
Oh, yeah. No, this is awesome. I really appreciate this happening. And I don't know why you guys decided to do it at 7:30, but it was perfect for me. So thank you for that. Penny's on the phone right now, so
Oh,
maybe, sorry. So I have
she's yelling on the phone.
He's
and
a future CEO.
probably more, up Taylor's alley, but Shanice, I obviously would love your input as well. Just the nature of our situation, these questions are about littles, and hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yeah,
Uh, So we have a 3-year-old girl and a 1-year-old girl. My questions are more, I guess, outside of some of the things that you talked about today. I think there are a lot of really awesome tools that I'm excited to try to incorporate as much as we can, but I have 3 questions that are kind of outside of that, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. One, I guess, is a question maybe for Jess and I, which is like, it's tough, especially now, like we're trying to work at home a lot of times and we're like alternating, and just like sheer energy levels are difficult to maintain, just like on a give to get. So, I mean, for both of you, obviously with the work that you do, like maintaining energy and just like trying to stay on it all day, I would be open to any tips that you have for us as parents, just to try to keep our own energy levels up. And maybe, I know some of the things you mentioned today, but just kind of open that topic up, because that is a challenge that we have as parents.
So one thing I would definitely suggest is with the child's energy level, they need gross motor, which I'm sure you are completely aware of. So giving them a healthy outlet for that gross motor, and an indoor appropriate outlet. So what I do in the classroom is we've got a couple different things. We have a yoga mat with cards for different stretches that the child can do. I have a running square where I might see that a child is like just, their body's going crazy, and I might say, hey, it looks like you want to run in the running square. Can you show me some fast feet in the running square? Make it like a game, redirect it in that way. Another thing that I might suggest is somewhere in your house taping down a circle large enough for your child to walk on. Children at this age, they love just, the circle is nice because it's a continued motion. So they can walk on the circle, crawl on the circle, make animal noises, whatever that it is.
That could be the dance floor, like
yeah, exactly. And that way there's a place for them to do these things, because it's not inherently, it's not bad that they have this need for gross motor and this energy. It's part of the age. So this way you're giving them an outlet that also kind of maybe gives you a little bit more of what you're looking for.
Another thing, if that could help develop those skills, if you go to Go Noodle, I think it's gonoodle.com, there's like yoga on there, there's just dances, it's all kid appropriate, and you could address it like, hey, I noticed we have a lot of energy, would you be interested in doing a brain break with me? And then like they're 5-minute videos, and then that way she feels connected with you. You guys are doing yoga together or a dance together. It creates laughter, connection. And then after that, be like, whew, I am tired. Do you think would you go do this, or this? Then that way it gives you, you connected with your child. They feel connected, but now they feel independent because you're letting them go choose another activity, which could be something that you could use that Taylor just incorporated.
So, and I think, Joe, you're talking about how do you keep your energy up, right?
But but I think this is it too, because really the drain comes from just trying to match,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're definitely doing a little more screen time than optimally we would do, but that is what it is. But the challenge with that is that might buy us the time we need, which with everything going on is fine. But it doesn't then we get to nap time or bedtime and it's like their cup is still full. basically.
Mhm.
So anything that like just brings the energy levels into balance where we're like draining them without necessarily like draining ourselves, if that sounds kind of selfish, but like it's just sort of the reality of the current situation.
So kind of like playing with them without having to fully play with them all day.
Yeah, because I mean we get, it is one of the blessings of what's going on right now. We get a lot of time to like play with them and connect with them, and it's awesome. But it's, you know, we can't unfortunately do that all day every day. So I think suggestions like those are perfect because it engages them, it gets their energy out without us having to like match, if that makes sense.
And then, Joe, to make you feel better, I will let you know, like the full first 2 weeks of school, I am drained. I'm not used to doing it. And it's just the moment you get a routine and a groove going in your household, you'll realize that things will start like just to fall into place. So like the first 2 weeks of school, I am exhausted. Like, I'm like, what am I doing with this? This like 80 kids all day long. Like, I've lost it. Why did I? But then like after the 2 weeks and we're in a groove, I'm like, oh, okay, now I have my energy back. I got this. So it's just one of those things that when you do find a routine that works for you guys, it will fall into place and you'll notice that your energy and your tolerance and all of that will go up. Because like, again, like when we come back from school in January, I'm exhausted again. I'm like, why am I exhausted? I just had 2 weeks to sleep and do this.
I'll take your word for it. 'Cause I like don't even understand how y'all do it. Okay, I have, I guess, 2 more questions. I had a question about like what to do with the full on like melt, like just the no, but I think you guys touched on some awesome things like the corner, walking them through stuff, and then just like keeping the language simple is a good challenge for me. So I can skip that. So I have 2 other questions. One, we have a sibling, and we have had a lot of conflict lately with the 2 of them. Overall, they do a really good job, but you know, like Ellie is the baby. Ellie's playing with something. Penny wants to play with it. She'll just go take it. She might, you know, like knock her over or just whatever. So any tips you have on how to like, nice, just sorry, any tips that you have on helping the 3-year-old understand like their relationship and, you know, like work with the 2 of them together, because it's kind of fits and starts right now.
So,
Sorry.
oh no, that's okay. I think taking a look at the emotion faces that we're going to send you with your 3-year-old will be really helpful, because like behaviors like pushing and any sort of kind of aggressive behavior like that, it's because she's feeling frustrated or, you know, annoyed, whatever it is, and she doesn't know how to cope with that feeling. So helping her to understand what that is and to understand alternatives. So if the 1-year-old takes something from the 3-year-old, then you can help the 3-year-old understand. Instead of pushing, she can say, I don't like when you do that. Of course, you know, between a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, they're going to need some guidance from you in those situations. But slowly, the 3-year-old will start to understand that that aggressive options or physical options, that's not how we work through problems. I think the other thing that could be helpful is if you create this peace corner, having, and you know, it's up to you how you do it, but having this peace corner just be your 3-year-old space, or if it's not the peace corner, having a space that is just for your 3-year-old and just for your 1-year-old, because with siblings, a lot of that rivalry comes from the fact that they're having to share everything. So if there's a space that just belongs to one or the other, it might kind of help with some of those difficulties.
And if you do notice that she is taking things away, because Penny's your 1-year-old and Ellie's your 3-year-old, correct? Or flip-flop?
Yeah, other way around. Sorry.
So if you do notice that Penny is taking things away from Ellie, you could be like, hey, I noticed that you took away this from Ellie. Do you like, why did you do that? And if she's like, well, I wanted to play with it. They're like, well, I understand that it's frustrating when your sister's playing with your toy. Do you think it would be possible if we let her play with it a few minutes more and then it can be your turn? That way, instead of saying, oh, you need to share, well, sharing concept for a 3-year-old's hard. That toy's mine. I feel like she's thinking, I don't need to share it. It's mine.
Yeah.
But if you use that I noticed language, like, I noticed that you took it away from her. Can you explain this? And I wanted to play with it, which, again, I work with big. So how you word things with littles is like magic, because I'm not there yet. But just noticing that you, like, letting her know that you noticed it and that it's not okay. But also giving her that opportunity that she will get to play with the toy eventually. And then to help be like, would you mind playing with this toy or this toy while you wait until she's finished? Because then you give her that choice, but also letting her know that she is going to eventually get to play with that toy.
With your 1-year-old, what I would add is at that age, of course, you can't have these conversations. It's just not going to work. So when it comes to aggressive behaviors, especially with a 1-year-old, because, you know, they're starting to learn their bodies even more, and sometimes it just hurts, the things that they do. So gentle touches is a huge thing. So if you see your 1-year-old, even whether it's your child or a pet or even just a material that they're using, if they're being rough with it or like very physical, just say, ouch. Gentle touches, and then just like rub your arm or grab their hand and make them rub their own arm or their sibling's arm. So there's that concrete motion to go with it, and then ouch, gentle touches, the same every time, and then eventually they'll start to understand what that means.
That's good. Our 1-year-old is like very physical too. Like she's pretty strong, and we keep telling the 3-year-old, like, when she's getting physical, is like, hey, this isn't going to work much longer, because like she's fairly petite, and our 1-year-old is we call her a brawler, because so yeah, but that's good. So we'll kind of work on it from both ends and hopefully minimize the conflict. Okay, my last question, thank you for answering all these, is there's definitely like a lot of awesome tools and a lot of really great stuff, but it feels like a lot sometimes, you know, like, and I know you're not saying like do all these things all the time, but like if you were going to sort of start somewhere or pick like maybe 1 or 2 sort of big picture things, you know, like whether it's the language or the corner or the schedule or the, you know, bedtime routine, I don't know, just like try to zero in on a place to start. That would probably be helpful for me, because it feels just overwhelming sometimes to like, okay, in this situation I can do this and I can do this and I can do this, but like sort of distill it just for now, and then we can sort of like expand into all these awesome resources you guys have provided.
I would say definitely the calm spot and introducing the different feelings, and that, like, I know you said 2, but some of it, like the language and the feelings kind of go together. But I would say the safe place for them to figure out when they are feeling the feeling. And then that way they have a space that they realize, okay, this is for me when I'm feeling this way. And then the emotion picture part of it, and like, just so they realize like how they feel is validated, and that they understand their feeling is important. And Taylor may have a different thing, and definitely take Taylor's, because she knows the little kids. She knows the little kids, so.
No, I definitely agree with Shanice. I think that the peace corner and the emotions are the biggest part. If you're, you know, feeling like you want to tackle one more thing, having a consistent schedule every day would be good. Even if you're not starting with having that visual schedule, if you yourself have a consistent schedule with your children, then their bodies will just start to internalize that schedule, and that's going to make life for everybody just that much easier.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just add from like a pastoral perspective that, you know, again, we're kind of moving from this perspective that if you're stressed, your kids are going to be stressed. And so it's okay to start with the thing that stresses you out the most.
Yeah.
Like, because you have to take care of you. And like, I feel like there's so much messaging about if you're the parent, like your kid's needs comes first. And that's fine when you can send them out for long periods of time. But when they're with you 24/7, it's like, it's okay for you to notice, okay, this is the thing that's most stressful for me. I'm going to start with that. And go from there. But I love this idea of this emotion chart. Taylor, was there a resource you were going to share? Is there like a link or?
Yeah, let me see if I can do that really quick.
Because I can also, I want to put files in a Google Drive folder and then share the link.
Oh, perfect.
And I post the recording of this. So there's that.
I already have a document. I was going to put all the information on that document so parents can, because I put like different links, and I was just going to put Taylor's PDF in there too.
Perfect.
I just have it.
Cool.
But also though, if it makes you feel better, watch it. I told Amy the other day when she was talking about you and Jessica, I was like, I love that family. In church, I heard them say, hey, take a deep breath. And I was like, I just loved it. And so please know that you guys are already doing a lot of things. And Amy informed me that I think Jessica's a psychologist, correct? Or
She's a therapist. She's a
therapist.
Mm-hmm.
For adults.
So
For adults.
I was gonna say I cannot take any credit whatsoever, because when Penny, who's now 3, was like, I don't know, maybe not quite 1 or somewhere like that, she's like, all right, we're starting emotional coaching, like just like using the language and stuff. And I was just like, she can't talk, like, but I mean, she is really like just creating that for ourselves. Like, it's incredibly effective, but I can take no credit apart from occasionally like doing it. So
Well, and
But
I think too, like this being emotionally focused and interpreting behaviors through the lens of an emotional motivation is so different from the way that I was taught. Like being in school, it's different from the way that I was taught to teach. It's different from the it was modeled in my home growing up, but every other environment that I was in, that was not the way. And so I just want to recognize that not only are you trying to implement these things, but you're also having to rewire your brain conceptually about how this stuff works. I used to teach, before I started working at Broadway, I was teaching preschoolers ballet, tap, tumbling, and an art project in 120 minutes. No, not 120 minutes, in an hour and 20 minutes. And so I had these like dozen 3.5 to 5-year-olds that I was trying to teach these really complicated skills to. And there was this one day that this little girl, we were playing a game, and she said, she was like, I want to be it next. And I was like, maybe, we'll see what happens. And she must not have, she only interpreted my body language and interpreted that as, okay, you're next. And then when she wasn't next, she melted down completely. And I was taught, like, when I was taught how to teach dance, it was like, okay, that kid goes to the corner, has their meltdown, like we demonstrate, we make sure they know that that's not okay, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what was running through my mind. And I was like, it took me a minute to go, wait a minute, that's not what's happening here. She doesn't need to be punished for this emotion that she's feeling, there was a miscommunication, and that's it. So as soon I turned right around to her and I like sat down right in front of her and I said, I am so sorry there was a miscommunication. Like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. That's what I said. So I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And like, as soon as I apologized, she just like, it was like a whole new person almost in front of me. But it took time for me to sort of rewire my brain and my behavior to look at that piece of it and not just like, oh, this is a disruption. So just to validate that, like, this is a major transition.
Crazy how they can
just
flip the switch either way. Like they can go from, just like great to just like off. But then every once in a while it'll happen the other way where like if you get like connected, they can just sort of like
mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are patterns. I mean, I think that's one of the other pieces that stood out to me about what Taylor and Shanice were saying, is that over time we can begin to notice patterns, and these, we can begin to sort of anticipate some of these things. And I feel like as soon as we start to do that, their developmental stage changes and we start all over again.
But like what's good news about it though is like tricks and things that happen that like people do for younger children, it does help for older children. So like when my kids are acting kind of crazy in the hallway, I'll be like, I notice how Susie here is just being an awesome role model. And then all of a sudden, both of my lines are straight and quiet because they want that recognition. So it even though like it is different, those like older kiddos, they're not too cool for school. The moment you give them that positive feedback, because like human nature is we like thrive off of that. So it's one of those things like, yes, it does seem impossible, but give yourself grace. You guys are doing awesome. You have 2 kiddos. You all 4 are still living and happy and loved and cared for. It's just, it does take time. And like from my childhood to how I was raised, I really had to and I'm still working on it. Like I tell my kids, like, hey guys, I'm so sorry that was my reaction. I'm used to this because when I was a kid, this is how problems got solved. If you ever feel that I'm being this way, please let me know so I'm aware of it. Because it's one of those things like it clicked in my head because one day I heard a kid going, wow, Miss Martin must be having a really bad day. And I was like, well, wait, why did you say that? You're not in trouble, but I need your perspective or I can't fix it. So it's one of those things. It definitely takes time. I'm in year 4 and I still mess up daily.
Yeah, that older kids would be really tough for different reasons too, because they're just like, what age are they again?
I have 10 and 11-year-olds.
Yeah. And I remember
And
even being at that age, just like dissecting people, just watching them all. And then like another couple of years, they're just like looking for weakness, or maybe they already are. I don't know. It's crazy. Kids are scary sometimes. So I think it's cool that you can take that approach where they're like, I don't know, like they recognize you're having a bad day, even though you don't necessarily recognize it because they're just used to seeing you all day, every day. So they can like tell. So by opening up that line, it's like you're on the team now instead of it being like it's cool.
And I tell like whenever Penny and Ellie are older, I do verbalize things with my children. I'm like, listen, guys, I did not sleep well. I may be kind of irritable. I just letting you be aware. I'm not saying we're going to have a bad day. I'm just letting you be aware that I don't know what's happening. I had weird dreams, and they all kind of laugh. And then like throughout the day you hear them like, no, she's tired. You need to quiet down.
Oh, I love it.
So
yeah,
it's
and you
one
can
of
do that with the little guys too.
Yeah, like, oh, my tummy hurts. Because, like, their first thing is, like, nurturing and, like, wanting to connect. So, like, they immediately, if you verbalize what's happening with you, then they automatically feel validated when they feel that way. Yeah. So, like, if you're saying, oh, I'm tired, they are thinking, I've been tired before. Like, so.
We've seen that with Penny, like one of us will be crying literally and she'll be like, oh no, are you sad? like, what happened? Because she's just like mirroring, but she'll like, it's wild. It's a human thing, right?
Mm. And but also like we call it class family. It just makes them feel connected and involved with each other. So like every morning we do wish you well. So it's one of those things like if something's on our heart or something's happening at home, we put it in our heart and then we just like take a minute, wish those people well. That way they communicate what's happening with them at home and then they're able to, they left it on the heart so then they're able to focus on their day. And like just that connection piece, like I realized when we don't do it, our day's a little more chaotic and they're more chatty. Whereas if we do take that 5-10 minutes in the morning to talk about morning meeting and wish you well, then the rest of the whole day just goes smoother for them because they're not focused on it anymore. They verbalized it, it's out of their brain, they can focus on other things.
Yeah,
But
cool. Well, thanks everybody. I think it's probably about time for us to wrap up, but Joe, I'm glad you were here, and Jess, and I hope this was helpful. Laura was on for a minute. Leedy is a first or second grader, and so we may be hearing some questions from Laura kind of offline, but you know, please keep us posted about how this is, you know, how things are going. And I mean, I know Shanice and Taylor and I are all happy to be resources anytime. So we're happy to like do something like this again, or, you know, if there's anything that would be helpful, just let us know. Because
The recording would be huge. I'd screenshot a couple of those slides, but
Yeah.
the recording would be really awesome.
Yeah, so we'll put the slides and other documentation, like I said, in a Google Drive folder so that the recording will be there and then all the documentation will be there too.
and then also, I'm not going to volunteer Taylor. I'm on the directory. So if you ever have a question or need a resource, do not hesitate to call. Like they always say, it takes a village to raise a family. I don't mind being a part of your village to make sure that you feel supported and everyone feels supported.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Yeah.
You gals are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everyone have a wonderful day, and I'll let you know once all this stuff is posted.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
one.